Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of PSR. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here in this corner of the internet we call extremism. Today we are talking about the Promethean LP1 optic from Lead and Steel. But first, I gotta thank my buddies at KAK Industry. KAK Industry is the channel sponsor for Print Shoot Repeat, and they keep my lights on. In addition to you guys at Patreon, obviously, as well. What does KAK make? Well, they make all sorts of parts for your ARs and more. And did you know that KAK makes a ton of parts for other OEM manufacturers? We won't list who they are, but KAK supplies a bunch of parts to some of the companies that you might already know making ARs. And they love homemade stuff, but we're not going to talk about that because YouTube hates that. But just know they support it. So thank you to KAK for sponsoring this channel. If you want 10% off your order from KAK Industry, never use the code PSR for 10% off your order. Horrible decision. Would not recommend it at all. Wink. So thank you KAK for sponsoring this channel. Alright, so let's talk LP1. So the good folks at Lead and Steel hit me up a while back, said that they were big fans of the channel and they wanted to send me some stuff. So a little disclaimer, Lead and Steel sent me this upper, which is a 12.5-inch mid-length upper, and they sent me the LP1 optic for free. I was not paid or anything, and I'm going to be unbiased in my review of these items. All right, so before we get to talking about this optic, which is very exciting, I want to quickly talk about this upper receiver. So this upper receiver is a 12.5-inch mid-length gas system, and it uses a cool little trick called the monoblock barrel by HM Defense. The monoblock barrel is cool because it comes built in with a gas block attached to the barrel. It is in there like swimwear from the get, and it is part of the barrel, which eliminates any kind of issues you might have lining up the gas block or making sure it stays on there. It is on there, and it is on there for good. However, the good convenient thing is that you can also remove the handguard without having to remove the gas block, which is always nice. Quickly going over the way I have this rifle set up, I'm actually using one of KAK's brand new serialized lowers. So KAK just started making actual guns, and they are selling complete rifles as well as stripped lowers, and this is utilizing one of the KAK lowers. So shouts out to KAK now making lowers. This is a serialized gun for YouTube. This is completely safe, completely made from the factory, and guess what? I got a background check on it, and I passed the background check. So YouTube, if you're worried about this being unsafe, it's completely safe. Why? Because it has a serial number, and we know that serial numbers prevent violent crime. So on to talking about this setup. So we'll start from the tip and go to the butt. So this is a A2, standard A2 flash hider. Like I said, it's a 12.5-inch barrel, so it is pistol length unless you were to SBR this, but we're keeping it as a pistol because why? We have this shockwave blade on the back. But let's talk about this guy right here. So this is the HoloSun LS321, and I was sent this by Goon in Gear. So shouts out to Goon in Gear. They make night vision and a bunch of other stuff, lasers and anything night vision related. Haven't used it that much, but I was able to shoot with it under nods, not with this gun, but with a 22, and it ran awesome. So big shout out to the folks at Goon in Gear. The other thing I have on this is a nightstick flashlight. Just a little carbine light, works great. I don't have it wired up with any tape switch or anything. Easy to press and works fine. So moving down the rifle, we have a little hand stop slash little like hand grip. This is by Strike Industries, as well as these M-LOK covers. I also have a tape switch attached to the HoloSun. All right, moving further down, we have, of course, our LP1, which I'm going to talk about in a sec, but I have it on this riser. So this is a Unity riser. I got a knockoff version off AliExpress initially, but then I actually really liked it, so I decided to buy the real version. The real version worked great, as well as the knockoff version, but I wanted to support the company because it actually is a great product. I decided to rise it up a little bit, and that way it cleared the HoloSun laser, and I was able to see through it fully without having any obstructions. Moving down further on the upper, what's really cool is Lead and Steel includes a Radian Raptor charging handle, ambidextrous. They make some good charging handles. This mag that I have here is a 32 round Strike Industries mag. I've ran these quite extensively and I haven't had any issues with them yet. I really dig them. Nice to have a couple of rounds extra for capacity. The grip is a Zuck This grip. It is a nice aggressive pistol grip that I really like. It's got some good grippiness to it, and it's quite girthy, so shouts out to Zuck This. All right, so now what you've all been waiting for, let's talk about this optic. I'm really excited about this because I've always been into closed emitter optics, and I've wanted something as an other option to the Holosun and the EOTech, something that kind of like fit in between, and I think honestly, this might be it. So let's talk about the features of the LP1. So the way that Lead and Steel approached this design was they wanted to make sure that it had multiple layers that if they failed, it would still be able to run. So if you're used to like the EOTech, you'll know that it's a holographic sight. This is not a holographic sight. So this is a traditional red dot with an emitter inside, similar to what you'd see on like the Holosun or an aim point, for example. But what they wanted to do was make it extra durable, and I believe they've done that. What they did was they made the initial housing right here underneath this shroud, they made that 6061 aluminum. Now the EOTech, for example, is polymer on the under housing, right? And then on the outer housing, the EOTech is aluminum. So it's got an outer shroud and the inside is polymer, whereas this guy is aluminum on the housing and the shroud. So the inner housing is 7075 T6, whereas the outer shroud part is 6061 T6, and it features crumple zones, much like the bumper of a car, so that if you were to drop this thing, it would be able to take an impact on the 6061. What's cool is this 6061 crumple housing is replaceable, and if you were to ding it up or something, you could always swap it out and get a new one, and that's what it's really meant for. It's meant to be like a sacrificial aspect of the optic. In addition, the LP1 features a parallax-free LED with unlimited eye relief. It's got a pretty large window for target acquisition. I think it's 1.3 by 1 inches. It's got half MOA adjustment for windage and elevation. It's got a user configurable circle dot, much like the Holosun, where you can choose between 3 different reticles. One is just the dot, the other is like a CQB reticle, and then the third is just a circle, which is kind of cool, and you could use it for a shotgun or something. The LP1 is powered by a single CR123A for 30,000 hours continuous runtime with the circle CQB reticle, and up to 50,000 hours runtime with the 2 MOA dot reticle, which is pretty damn good. The optic features a always on until manually turned off feature, which honestly I think is best, because if this is a duty rifle or a duty gun that you have it on, I would much rather have that on all the time and then you switch it out every couple years than being able to fuss around. And like an EOTech, you know, you don't want the batteries to go, so you turn that thing off and then you have to press a button before you get going. This is just always on, and it just makes sense that way. The LP1 features 5 daytime settings and 2 dedicated night vision settings. It also is IPX8 waterproof rated. The LP1 also features a quick detach mount, which is really, really nice. It comes standard with that. I know some optics having to unscrew them as I use them on different rifles is quite annoying, and the fact that this just comes standard with a QD mount is just so nice. And the weight of this thing is 11.8 ounces. Now I think that's only 0.2 ounces, maybe more than an EOTech, so it's very comparable to an EOTech, and I would say it really is targeting the EOTech more than any other optic out there. Lastly, this does come with a lifetime warranty from Lead and Steel, which is always nice. They stand behind the product. These are going to retail for around $450, and right now they are available for $275 pre-order, and they will eventually be $450. But if you get on the early adopting pre-order list, you can get one for $275. Currently, I think the ETA for them is around March 2023. This optic does seem fairly durable. I have not run it through durability test. I would like to do that, but I would like to get a different unit than this one because I just really like this and I don't want to beat it up. Now, if you want to check out some of the testing for the durability, check out this video down below in the description that Lead and Steel did, where they did a EOTech and an LP1 and kind of face them off in terms of durability. It's a good video, so check that out. So how did this thing do? Well, I'm used to running Holosun 510Cs. That's been my preferred optic for a long time. It isn't a closed emitter optic, but it is a nice wide big window, which I really like, and it has that CQB reticle, so I'm used to that kind of optic, and this felt very similar, except with the advantage of this enclosed housing and this closed emitter. That way there's no dirt or anything that can protrude in front of that emitter. I'm also used to using the EOTech EXPS3, which is a newer optic that I have, and I've been running that a lot, and I really love that optic, but I wanted to use those two to kind of compare this to. So let's start with glass quality. I personally think the glass quality on this is excellent. I don't have any weird shift of parallax, or it's not magnified. My Trijicon MRO is like slightly magnified, and you'll know in other reviews people mention that the MRO is like a slightly zoomed in point of view when you look through it, and that really annoys me because it kind of makes looking with both eyes open, which is what a red dot is supposed to allow you to do. It makes it harder to look at the target with both eyes open. It's not a game changer, but it's something that just annoys me about the MRO, and this is not like that. This is perfect view when you open both eyes, and it just is a really bright reticle. I usually leave it during the day one brightness setting below the brightest, but on the sunnier days I cranked that brightness all the way to the top. It was always perfectly bright for the situation. The buttons themselves are very tactile. It's interesting, the down arrow button makes a different sound than the up arrow button. Listen, so this is the up arrow button, and this is the down arrow button. They both feel the same in terms of tactile feel, and you do get this feeling of hitting it when you hit the button. It's very clear, yes, I hit it. Now to turn the optic off, you just press the down button and hold it down, I think for about 3 seconds, and the optic will turn off. And I'll show you here, I compared it to the EOTech and the MRO, and you can kind of get an idea of what they all look like. The MRO doesn't have that big ring reticle, but the EOTech does, and the LP-1 does, so you can see what those both look like side to side. I also did test this with night vision, and the settings on night vision worked great for me. I used it on the lowest setting. I used it in a darker environment looking through a PVS 14, and you'll see on the image it worked great. I didn't have any issues, saw the reticle fine, so it does work great with nods. So what are my conclusions on the optic? Well, after running around 500 rounds through it, I had no issues to complain about. The only thing I would say that's a downside to this optic is that it's a little bit bulky, a little bit bigger, but like I said, it's also a plus to have that open view that you have with this kind of optic. I think we're seeing a lot more of companies trying to take on EOTech. If you watch Hoplop Files channel, you can see he did a really good comparison of a bunch of EOTech clones, kind of, and I think this one falls into that, but I really think this would do a really good job against it. So hopefully Lead and Steel can get Hop one of these to do a review on, because I think he would do a good review on it. So I've talked about how much I like some of the features of this thing. Is there anything that I don't like? Well, the main thing I noticed when using the quick detach mount is that sometimes I had a hard time getting it off the rail. It was weird. I'm taking the optic off, and watch, it'll come off perfectly now. I've got the optic off. I'm just trying to take it off the mount, and there it goes. It just takes a little bit of finessing to get it off. To adjust the tightness on the rail, you have this little dial right here where you push the lever in and you just spin it. So in conclusion, my thoughts on the LP1, it's a very, right now especially, affordable alternative to the EOTech while offering the same amount of features and hopefully around the same amount of durability. Like I said, check out Lead and Steel's channel for their torture test that they did on these, and they did a drop test and it was very revealing. So all in all, I think there's a lot of optics out there that are trying to defeat the EOTech, and honestly this might be the closest competitor to doing that. So that's about it for today's episode. I love you guys. If you want to support me, I've got merch, and I'll put that link in the description, as well as a Patreon. And in the Patreon, we have access to my Discord server, which is only $1 a month, so might be considered worth your time. I also have different tiers where I have early access to videos and places where I post my music. So if you're interested in that, have a look. The Patreon is in the description. Thank you guys again for watching. Until next time, take care. Bye. more.